Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Objectively Your Sports in the Show. And I'm Joe Mauricio. This afternoon, I have one very special guest from Salt Lake City, Utah, and he is no other than David Burns, an MD, a PhD, MPH, and FACOG. And he is the son, believe me or not, a son of a British naval officer. And he can tell us and relate us about the war later on. Again, my guest today is no other than Dr. David Burns. Welcome to our show.
Thank you, Joe. Normally I'm a humble sort of person, but I'm not a Stephen King. But I will say that I have been instructed and actually trained at 6 universities and became, away from those 6 universities, debt-free. I got through the war in London as part of a London Blitz survivor for 5 years. I've had university recommendations and awards both in London and New York. I've worked with the American Indians, the Cree in northern Saskatchewan and the Assiniboine. I've worked with the Micmac in the Maritimes, with the Sioux in South Dakota, and with the Blackfoot in Montana. I've also been professor at a couple of universities, the University of Miami and also the University of Hawaii. Also, it's been my privilege to serve in the United States Army for 22 years, both and also in the British Army for 8 years, both in the Royal Artillery and in the Royal Army Medical Corps. I also was in Beverly Hills with my own practice in OBGYN for 10 years. The British Army, as a matter of interest, sent me around the world from London to Germany to Cyprus to Singapore to Malaya to Thailand to Bangkok. The American Army sent me in the opposite direction from San Francisco to Hawaii to Kyoto, Osaka, and Okinawa in Japan. On my own, actually, it's with a group of 25 people here in Chicago from Northwestern University. We went to China to evaluate 3 universities and 3 rural area settings for medicine and to compare and contrast. We went to Beijing, Chengdu, Xi'an, and down to Hong Kong. If I can just close the gap between Bangkok and Hong Kong, I really will have been around the world. I also did some humanitarian missions in El Salvador and in Peru. And in El Salvador, we managed to see 6,000 people in 2 weeks. When we went to Peru the following year, we saw 9,000 people in 2 weeks. And this is all documented. We were seeing more than 700 and 1,000 a day. The kind of conditions we met are documented in the book, Insanity of Wars. It's possible to get it at insanityofwars.com, but particularly people who are going to Central and South America, take a look at this so you'll be prepared for the kind of cases you're going to receive there.
Wow. Now, how old are you?
Well, I'm going to celebrate my 80th birthday next year by running the Honolulu Marathon. So I'm hoping, if you're interested in longevity, insanityofwars.com, it actually explains some secrets of longevity.
Wow. So, you were born before World War II?
Yes, I was part of the London Blitz, and that was an insane time. You know, in 1935, the country of lovers, Italy, was invading Africa, Ethiopia, Abyssinia. The following year, in 1936, there was a civil war in Spain. General Tito was trying to take over the country, assisted by Hitler and Mussolini. In 1937, the following year, those beautiful islands off the Asian mainland, Japan, attacked China, going south, killing hundreds of thousands of people on its way through to Burma and Malaya and Singapore and eventually the Philippines. In addition, the following year, after attacking China, they attacked Russia and Mongolia. Now, I don't know if you've seen the maps recently about Mongolia. It's nearly the size of Europe. So that was in 1938. In 1939, Hitler had already invaded Czechoslovakia. He then invaded Poland and, of course, started World War II. In 1940, England was getting bombed as part of the Blitz. And, of course, in 1941, those same islands then took on the United States and Hawaii. So not only were they taking on China, Russia, Mongolia, they then took on the world power of the United States. And that was totally insane. I want to ask you a question. I would like to ask that how many people do you think died between 1935 and 1945? And of course, you can't tell me. I want you to keep the number in your mind, and I will tell you that it's documented, taking both sides, grandmas and children and lots of innocent people, 73 million people. Wow. You know, Senator Dahl frequently asked who served in World War II and is still alive. Let's not forget the sacrifices that were made in World War II. 73 million people is insane.
Wow, how do you want people to get inspired by your book?
I want them to be inspired by the book, which is the purpose of writing Insanity of Wars. I want teenagers to know that set a goal. If this is really what you want in your heart, no matter what the difficulty is, go after it. And I've explained in my book, not everybody in the United States and United Kingdom and elsewhere are bombed daily, and their game at school as to who can bring in the largest chunk of a Nazi bomb. We called it shrapnel, and that was our game at school. So please, difficulties always exist throughout life, but choose a goal and go after it. That would be for the teenagers. And for the parents, I would ask them to be inspired. Never underestimate a child. You know, children frequently are brighter than we are. They can pick up a foreign language a lot quicker than we can. There's been an interesting study from Harvard and the University of Birmingham recently. They've actually measured the neurotransmissions in the brain are at a rate of 700 a second in the first 2 years of life. And at age 2, they've decided that 100 trillion synaptic messages at the age of 2. I don't know how they do it, but after the age of 8, it falls away and gets less. So with a child, let's be sympathetic, empathetic. What saddens me is when I see a child putting at a father's leg. He wants to play, he wants the dad to talk to him, and instead the dad will just say, go away and play. We have to be able to verbalize with our children. We have to put them to bed early. We have to give them a good, simple diet. Eggs and orange juice is a good way to start. Yogurt. And look after our young children and make them the best they can be.
I'm impressed with what you're saying and things like that. Do you prepare fiction from nonfiction?
I've written both fiction and nonfiction, but what amazes me is that nonfiction can be stranger than fiction. I'll give you 2 examples. One is my grandparents live, and most people know this as Tower Bridge. Most people know that Tower of London is on this side of the Thames, where the Queen's jewels are. But on this side of the Thames is a small county called Southwark. It has a parish church, and the street where my grandparents lived was called Harper Street. When I, quote, retired, semi-retired, to Salt Lake City, the adjoining street was exactly the same, Harper Street. Now that, to me, was strange. But even more strange, they used to go to a little parish church there, and 10 minutes walk along the embankment is the Globe Theatre of William Shakespeare. Now, everybody knows William Shakespeare was born in Stratford-on-Avon. He came to London. He had a small company. He wasn't just a playwright. He was an actor, and his company played on the north bank of the Thames initially. Didn't do very well, so they came to the south bank, 10 minutes away from the parish church. We know that Shakespeare attended the church. He actually buried his brother Edmund there. Now, what's also interesting is that at the same year, 1607, John Harvard, the man who's put his name to the college in Massachusetts, was actually baptized in the same church. And if you were to take the boat, and I hope you will next time you're in London, collect the boat at the Houses of Parliament, Big Ben, you go down the River Thames, and within 10 minutes you reach Tower Bridge. Just go underneath the bridge, and on the left is a small quiet room called the Grapes. And that's where Charles Dickens wrote Pickwick Papers and Great Expectations. We know that Charles Dickens crossed over the Thames on the bridge, of course, attended the church there because he writes about it all the year round. So you've got William Shakespeare, you've got Charles Dickens, you've got John Harvard, all going to the same church. And what is really strange is that most people have read the Bible, or some of it, and it was originally in Greek and Hebrew. The person that's made it possible for us to read the Bible in English was the bishop of the same parish church. His name was Bishop Lancelot Andrews. And one more very strange fact is, of course, if you're a literary major, you will know about Ben Jonson.
Ben Jonson.
He was number 2 to William Shakespeare, and he is also buried in that same parish church. So I do believe that nonfiction can be stranger and sometimes more interesting than regular fiction.
Very well. What is special about the book?
Well, I believe that it's very important to learn about longevity, keeping healthy, not just getting old, but keeping your youthfulness, keeping your mind fresh and alert and active. I deal with that in the book. The second major concern of mine, I think it's very important in wartime to come to a negotiated settlement as soon as possible. All wars eventually end. It's rather like playing baseball. We go to first base, second base, third. We've got to get to fourth base as quickly as we can with a negotiated settlement. The third value is the lesson to parents: never underestimate their young children. Please get them to bed early. And fourthly, if you would like a guide on how a family brings up the children, if you look at the front cover of this book, you'll see a little girl here, 2 years of age. Should a 2-year-old learn to ski? Another question: should a 10-year-old boy finish a 26.2 mile marathon? Can that same boy go to Harvard at 15? The stories are in the book.
Okay. I want you guys, where can they get this book?
Very simple. InsanityOfWars.com. InsanityOfWars.com. Very simple. And if you go to that website, you will get an autographed copy.
All right. You heard the thing from the horse's mouth. So buy the book and learn more about the insanity of wars.
Thank you.
Again, this is Joe Mauricio. Thank you for sharing your Sunday with us. And I would like to thank my good guest today, no other than
Thank you, Chair.
Dr.
David Barnes.
David Burns. Thank you so much. Mabuhay!